All right, here we are, you and me. This is Jay Brown Yoga Talks podcast. My name is Jay Brown. I would like to welcome you, whoever you are. Are you new? Are there any new people listening for the first time today? If so, welcome to you. Everyone else who's returning, I'm much obliged. Thank you to anyone who's choosing to listen. How are we all doing? And, I ask that question a lot. And I would say, more times than not, the answer is I don't know. It's just about asking the question more, I think, than really knowing an answer. On some level, you can maybe tune into your body right now and get a sense of how you're doing, just like on a physical level. You might even be able to take a moment to tune into just like what's going on in your thoughts and how your mind is and like where your psyche is at in this moment. You might know how you're doing in some regards in that respect. But on other levels, it's often times where you don't know you're in it. How are you going to know when you're in the middle of it? And especially when things are changing quickly and you're having to adapt very often. And I think that has been the case over the last few years a lot. It makes me think of a couple things. One, it makes me think of those damn phone apps and how often you have to like update them. I mean, maybe some of you or most of you probably have them on like auto update, like, and they just do it without you. I, for some reason, am like, whatever, some kind of Luddite or whatever, and I have mine set to like manual. Like I decide when shit updates on the phone, not some big brother Apple or whatever. And maybe that's stupid because they totally can listen in and do whatever. I've got the phone. It's not like they don't have access to me, whether I update them or not. But in any case, if you notice how often they have to update, like the app works perfectly fine as it is, but it has to be updated. And I'm sure there's reasons, whatever. App developers know, whatever. They're always updating stuff, right? And I think that in many respects, specifically for yoga teachers and how things have changed so drastically in the last 4 years, from 2020 till now, I've been being a yoga teacher and making my living off of it since 1995. And the last 4 years, I've seen the most drastic change, I would say, in the prospects of having like a profession as a yoga teacher, in the ways that yoga is being marketed. I heard someone talking on another podcast recently, like a yoga industry person who knows a lot about stuff, and she said that the yoga world is unrecognizable. And I have to say, I agree. During the pandemic, I kept saying, are we going back to what we were doing before? I was like, I wonder, are we going to go back to doing things like we were before everything fell apart? And it wasn't even the right question to ask because it assumed that there was something to go back to. And I just think that the grounds have shifted under our feet quite a bit. First, with lockdowns, and then now since lockdowns are over and like the dust has been settling, it's just hard to have any bearing, And I do think we have to be able to be adaptable. The other thing that makes me think of is something I've observed being a parent, that especially when my children were very young, as they were growing and developing and having their own lives, when they were young, you would get to know them at a certain stage and get into a groove with them and like have a certain, you get used to them being a certain way. And then they'll have like some growth spurt, developmental spurt, and they just completely change and everything's different. And you got to like do it all over again, And you get used to it because it happens enough times. And as they get older, it's maybe farther in between that you have to make big shifts like that, where they change drastically. But still, my eldest daughter's 13. It's like from year to year, it's like a whole new ball game. And I just think that feels true in respects like the profession of yoga and online yoga classes. And as you know, if you've been listening to this show, one of the things I like to do is try to connect with people I knew from the former incarnations of the yoga world who are still at it. Like if there's people who I met, 10 years ago who are still doing it now, I want to touch base with them and compare notes. And that is most certainly the case with today's episode. My guest is David Procyshyn. And David is the founder of DoYogaWithMe.com. And if you're listening from Canada, and I know there's a bunch of people from Canada, you might know this even more, or maybe not. I don't even know if it's Canada specific. But if you've been online doing yoga for a lot of years, you're probably familiar with Do Yoga With Me. I remember them from the earliest days. I talk about this with David. He was, in my view, an early adopter, way ahead of the curve. Certainly before I was on board. And it felt really grounding to have someone I could speak with who's been navigating it all for as long as I have and seeing a lot of the same things that I've seen and having to adapt and change in lots of different ways as I have. So it was really great to come together with David, and it's my pleasure to be sharing it with you today. Real quick before we get to it, let me mention that if you're getting something from the show and you want to find other ways to connect with me, there's lots of possibilities for us to do that. Maybe you want to get into some archived episodes with Podcast Premium and support the show, or maybe you want to come to some live events I've got going on in New York and the UK and Ireland, or there is also some ongoing discounts on teacher training. All the stuff I'm doing can be found on the website, and the best way to stay informed and connected with me is to subscribe to the free email list. There is a full range of options to suit anybody's budget or time. You can find everything at jbrownyoga.com. Okay, y'all, let's leave it there. I will touch base with you on the other side, but for now, let's go ahead and get into it. Let's listen to this conversation that I had with David Procyshyn. Hello, are you there?
Hello, I am.
David.
Hey, Jay.
What a moment. I'm so glad to have a voice-to-voice opportunity to speak to you today. I don't know if I think you've listened to the show before. I'm already recording, so let's consider ourselves having already begun, okay?
Oh, sure. I'm ready.
Very cool.
Yeah, well, I'm really honored to meet you as well. It's as you know, it's been a long time coming. We communicated, I don't even know how long ago it was because I didn't check my email thread, but that was probably
I did. I checked
7. Okay. I was going to say 6 or 7 years ago. Am I right?
It's even more than that because well, first of all, just for anybody who listens to this, when I got your email, it was like I had a flashback, to 10 years ago when you and I were last exchanging emails. And I looked back, I'm like kind of an email hoarder. So I did look back and we had some contact directly in like 2014 and 2015.
Okay.
Because you started, I think, to repost some of my blogs on Do Yoga With Me.
Yeah, that's right.
But I remembered you from before that. I had kind of been following you a little bit.
Oh.
Only because it was a really pivotal moment, which we can talk about today. I guess first, before we get into it, I don't really know much about you. I'm not sure I know where you are. Are you in Canada? Is that right?
Yeah, I'm in Victoria, British Columbia. Do you know where that is?
I know basically where it is. I haven't been there, but I know where it is on the map.
Okay. Yeah, it's on an island, Vancouver Island. So if you're in Vancouver, you can take an hour and 40-minute ferry ride to Victoria. It's a beautiful city surrounded by ocean. Yeah, I'm so happy and blessed to be living here. It's gorgeous.
And have you always been there throughout the whole time you've been doing Do Yoga With Me, or did you come from somewhere else?
When I started DoYogaWithMe, I was living in Vancouver. And then shortly after that, I moved to Victoria.
Interesting. I guess let me lay a little context I want to do like a little history with you, and then I want to talk yoga with you. That's my idea. Of course, you can take anything in any directions that you want to take it. I thought that first we would reminisce a little because when I did flash back to our last email exchanges, when we were last in contact in 2014 and 2015, it was almost like another alternate universe ago, you know? It really was a completely different time. And when I said that I was following Do Yoga With Me summits, because I had opened a yoga center in 2007. I started putting out the blog more formally, probably latter part of 2008. And I was really wanting to write about like what was going on in the industry as well as like just other yoga stuff. And that's when like Yoga Glow had kind of started. I believe they were founded in 2008. And I was just kind of paying attention, but I was highly skeptical at that time. In fact, I would say I was maybe even like anti-online yoga. And I remember there was like, somebody listening to this has got to email me, because I was looking for it, I didn't find it, but I'm sure someone could find it very easily. There was at one point this reality TV show of yoga teachers. Sadie Nardini was in it, if I remember. And one of the women in the show was kind of being ridiculed by other people in the show because she was just an online teacher and she didn't have any classes in person.
Right.
And I mean, right now, sitting here talking to you this moment, that is the case for me. I mean, I do have in-person classes, but most of my classes are online. But at that time, I was kind of like, I don't know, I was definitely resistant. But I was watching you because you seemed like, in my mind, kind of like a more indie version or something. I don't know why, if that was an accurate way to think of it, but it was just you, right? Did you have like a whole team, or was it just you?
Yeah, in the beginning, it was just me. In fact, I was everything. Like I would go to the park, I would set up my cameras, I would put down my mat, and I would record myself doing yoga, and I would pause, move the cameras, zoom in, zoom out, keep going. And then I'd take all that footage home and edit it like I knew how to edit, which I didn't. I was self-taught. It took me many years to understand like basic principles of video production, like lighting, like recording audio afterwards, getting good quality. And so it was for about the first 5 or 6 years, it was me doing all of the video production. You can notice the quality. Like at one point, the quality just radically jumps up, and that's when we hired a professional video producer.
Well, I did go and find a video of you doing yoga on YouTube from 2009.
Yeah. And guess what?
Yeah.
One of those classes that I filmed is called A Deep Release for the Hips, Hamstrings, and Lower Back. That might be the one you saw. It is the only one. I think it's at 2 million views now on YouTube. It's crazy.
I mean, you've got like a good amount of YouTube subscribers, I would notice. Like, is your YouTube channel been something that you've just kept with all these years?
Yeah, I mean, it's our relationship with YouTube changed over the 13 years that we've been operating, and it's because we adapted to the environment and we changed how our business was run in subtle ways. So currently we haven't posted a lot of videos on YouTube, and it's because we don't create as much free content as we used to. Whereas, we can go back into how this all originated, but in the beginning, we created all of our content 100% free. Nobody even needed to create an account on our website. And that's the way we wanted it to be. Our mission was to make yoga accessible to everyone. And so we wanted zero barriers in front of that. So YouTube was a natural alignment for us because it was just another channel that we could put our free content on that could potentially draw people to our website.
Right. And before you started shooting yourself with a video camera,
Mm-hmm.
did you have any other kind of like, I don't know, brick and mortar operation, or were you just teaching at centers, or like what was your background prior to that?
Yeah, my background was, I was teaching yoga as much as I could, and I was also a massage therapist. So I was doing both.
I see. In Vancouver, you said?
And Victoria, yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah. I lived in Victoria 2000, 2006. I moved to Vancouver 2006 to 2009. And then I came back to Victoria after that.
Okay, but you didn't have like your own yoga center when you started making yoga videos. You were just a teacher.
Yeah, that's right.
And so how do you have the foresight to see that when you did? Because it was definitely ahead of the curve. What made you think, I think I'll get myself a video camera and start videoing my yoga classes? What made you think to do that?
Yeah, well, I want to give you an inspirational answer, but
it doesn't have to be inspirational. I just want to know how it happened.
Well, okay, so the story is I was teaching yoga at a fitness studio in Vancouver, and one of the personal trainers, a great guy, he approached me one day and he said, "Hey, we've got this personal training website that we just built. It's starting to generate some revenue, and we want to do one on yoga too." And he said, are you interested? And I said, absolutely. So that was the founding moment. I'm considered the founder just because when all of this came together, their first website was built. The personal trainer and his friend, who was the website designer, quickly realized that their website was taking up all of their time. They just could not devote any time to the yoga, to DoYogaWithMe. So they basically passed it on to me.
So they gave you the URL?
That's right.
I see. And so you started initially just making a website and putting up yoga videos there?
Yeah, it was a bit of a steep learning curve for me. I
remember I did all my own HTML websites, so I completely understand. I know.
I remember.
And back then we were trying to use weird embeds. There wasn't all like everybody has now, where it's just like a drag and drop thing, and you put the URL from your Vimeo, or you know what I mean. You had to kind of code it. You had to know some stuff.
Yeah. Do you remember? Did you use Dreamweaver? That was the program that I used.
I used some, but I also just did a lot of cutting and pasting. It was all just a cut and paste job mostly.
Yeah. So. Yeah, it was really early on. Actually, the most significant difference between then and now is video, because back then, YouTube was in its infancy, and we didn't have like a common codec to use. We didn't know how to export those videos in the right format to be playable by everyone, no matter what country they're trying to play it in. So it was a guessing game, and it was a trial and error. And over time, of course, especially when video was put on a phone.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. It wasn't even mobile. It was all desktop guest. We didn't have the mobile ready sites or whatever yet. Yeah, and the amount of times we had to adapt to changing technology was just insane. It became crazy. That's why I switched over to like Squarespace at a certain, because it's just having to update the damn WordPress all the time just got crazy. Yeah, that's right. Wow, but you figured it out. You managed to get some stuff up there, and I guess that whoever those people were, shout out to them, the personal trainer who had the original idea, because that was it. Like, somebody saw like, hey, the internet's going to be a place for classes, and
That was the starting point. And then luckily, my brother happens to be a tech nerd. And I had this website that landed on my lap, and my brother saw the potential too. So he was working full time for the government, and he quickly said, "Hey, I'm going to design you the second website. Sweat equity, you can give me this percentage, we'll become business owners." And then that's when it took off. And he was such a source of comfort and knowledge for me, because I was the opposite. I'm still kind of the opposite of a tech nerd.
You were the yoga guy. I completely understand. I have the same thing with my partner, Josh. He has a certain thing that I don't have, that you need.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. We've been I didn't really see this before we became business partners. And, you know the old adage where you don't want to become a business partner with your friends or family.
Yeah, don't do business with your family. I've heard that one.
Yeah. And so we were worried. Absolutely. We were worried. We didn't want our friendship, our relationship to be damaged by this. So we just took a lot of care in how we set this up. And we talked a lot about decision making. We talked a lot about what would happen if it didn't work. So it ended up that we're closer now, just because we've worked through all of this stuff together, and we're both open and supportive. So that was a really great point. I look back at that moment as one of the best decisions I made.
I mean, I eventually was sort of convinced to start doing it at the end of 2015, 2016. You were already doing it, and I was like, that guy's doing it. It wasn't Yoga Glow, and I didn't want to be on Yoga Glow or some other big platform or something. Mm-hmm. And my business partner, Josh, convinced me to start doing them out of my classes at the center. And so at least I had kind of some worked through kinks and had infrastructure built before I sold the center in 2017, and then before the whole world fell apart in 2020, Because a lot of teachers scrambled, the ones who hadn't already kind of set stuff up for themselves,
Yeah, and a lot of people, that's when our competition increased dramatically.
And it's interesting. Everybody went online. Everybody had Zoom meetings.
Yeah. Yeah, and also a couple of really big companies appeared. What did you refer to us as? The
indie ones,
the indie ones. Yeah.
So you were because you were doing it for free. That's why when you somebody, I don't know if it was you who reached out originally, but somebody reached out from DoYogaWithMe, and I went and look, you had all this free stuff. You weren't like Yoga Glow. And I was like, oh, this is cool. I'm cool with them putting my blog post up here as long as you give me the link. That was always the agreement. And so I was happy to be on that platform,
Yeah.
So I associated with you being online yoga, but more grassroots than Yoga Glow. I don't know if that's true, because I don't really know what's behind Yoga Glow, but that's the way I perceived it at the time.
Yeah, and so you could, I like this indie word. I'm going to go with that. You could say that we were fiercely indie.
Yeah, just you and your brother, it sounds like.
Yeah, and we did not. So what we wanted to avoid at all costs was to have investors tell us what we needed to do to increase revenue. That's absolutely what we wanted to avoid. We wanted this company to reflect the values that we held as individuals. As we wanted our value system to be reflected in everything that we did in the company. Mm-hmm. And obviously, if you infuse your business with your value system, you're most likely, I don't know if I'm still not sure if this statement's entirely true, but you're most likely sacrificing growth.
Yes, sometimes values are only scalable to a point.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and because engagement, I don't know if you heard of this saying by E.O. Wilson. The real problem of humanity is the following: we have a Paleolithic emotion, medieval institutions, and godlike technology. And it is really easy to use godlike technology to influence people. And that's what social media is all about right now. So we want, like, our primary objective was to help people thrive. We did not want to participate in the growth of technology that was doing harm. And it's
an interesting line to ride, because I ride it as well. I really appreciate what you're saying. You know, I've said this before on the air, but, you know, Josh, he's kind of my brother who I do. It's just me and him, just like you and your brother. And he has a background working for bigger corporations in the music industry in the past. You know, like he kind of knows the machine from in a way that I don't. And so, you know, we've always talked about exactly what you just said. We've often called it like the bliss money balance, you know, if you do something for bliss and you get bliss from it, but you don't get money, at least you get the bliss, right? But if you do something for money and you don't get the money, not only do you not get money, you don't get the bliss either, you know? And also just like what you said about like who you kind of get in bed with, who you do business with, and how much influence they have over what you can do. Like, how much independence do you have over what you do? Because if someone's writing the check, then they might end up having more influence than you want them to.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly it.
And then also, I was going to say, like, we are like right now utilizing the technology. So like, it's not necessarily like an anti-technology standpoint, because that's not really, I don't know, it's not like a plausible stance to take for most people, you know, to be against the technology. It's, can I utilize this technology in a way that I can still stand by? Like you said, are my values that I hold still being expressed and not compromised?
Are you familiar with Tristan Harris?
I am. I saw that horribly scary TED Talk he gave about AI recently.
Right. Yes. Yes. So you know that he made, so the documentary that he created, The Social Dilemma, it's on Netflix. Have you seen that?
Yes, I have.
So yeah, he is, his life purpose right now is to define what positive usage of technology is. He's started this group called the Center for Humane Technology. He has a great podcast, by the way, called Your Undivided Attention. Mm-hmm. He's just he is like, oh, I love this guy. He is taking on this massive. Yeah,
but he also created the beast. I hear you. I appreciate what he's putting out, but I also like, he's also the guy who kind of made it all happen, isn't he?
Well, I believe he worked for Google. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. I mean, well, he was one of the people involved in getting us to where we are. And now he's repenting some maybe, but you know, I hear you. I appreciate, well, I guess. I appreciate the idea that, you know, at least we're going to have some honesty about what's happening. Because I think those things like there's things happening with the technology that not everybody's aware of, or like people don't care, but it actually does make a difference.
Yeah. Well, I guess maybe you could say he's like, you could look at it as he's one of those recent smokers who quit smoking, and now he's the most anti-smoker.
You know, he speaks from an informed place, that's for sure.
That's exactly it. He knows how much suffering is possible with this technology.
Yeah, he knows sort of a dark side of what's going on as well with the technology. That's why he made that movie, and that's why he made that talk about AI, you know.
Yeah, and if you go to his website, he has a free course that takes you through in depth all of these different aspects of technology, what's happening, and what we can do as citizens, business owners, government representatives. It's really great. If anyone wants to, if you just type in Center for Humane Technology, you'll find it.
Sure. Having said that about the kind of darker side of what happened with the technology in many sectors, I would say that yoga does very often occupy a little bit, as it always has, kind of like an in the margins place. Because I have all kinds of very authentic, real yoga with people online, Like, as I said, we're using technology. Even doing this show for all the years that I've been doing this, I started it in 2016. I absolutely have been able to have real humanity and connection through online spaces. So I wouldn't want to say it's all bad or throw it all out. I guess it's just having some awareness and discernment and being conscious about how you utilize it, and not getting taken for a ride.
Yeah, that's the key is that you're very values oriented when you're using these technologies, because, well, I guess the important thing to understand is that if you put a post on Facebook or Instagram or YouTube, the algorithms favor the content that is most engaging, and engagement is often driven by emotion, anger, bullying.
So wait a second. So you saw that happen too then, right? Because you and I, when I was sharing my blog with you to your website in 2014 or whatever, I can't really remember if that had already been the time where Facebook had really kicked in, but there was like an early, in my mind, and I don't know if you remember it this way, there was at least a period of time when Facebook first started where it was kind of fun. And it was just like all my old high school friends, and it felt way more innocent. And then at a certain point, it changed and it basically stole everyone's attention away, and nobody was commenting on the blog sites anymore. It was all on Facebook. Did you see that happen?
Yeah, that's when I drifted away from Facebook. It was the first step of many steps that took them towards far greater revenue and far greater, I don't know what word to use. It's like it became like they just wanted everybody to do everything on Facebook.
Yeah, they found all these ways to keep them there, keep people there.
That's right. Yeah. Like every choice they made was to keep people on the website, regardless of the impact they were having.
Facebook became the internet for a lot of people.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it also, like, you can see how it affects what people post too, like especially businesses.
Yeah, see, it went from like sharing with your friends to then promoting all your stuff. Like the line between friends and like customers or something really got blurred.
Yeah. Yeah. And also, like, I mean, you and I, we could go back to what the origins of yoga were and how it's been warped in Western society, but social media has just done so much damage, because when you are posting on social media with the prime objective of creating engagement, then you will drift towards things that look sexy. You'll drift towards like a 30-second video on how to release neck tension or how to lose weight.
Any way to keep somebody from scrolling.
Yeah. You basically, like, the question you asked first is, what are the biggest pains in the world or whatever? How do I want to, what are the biggest questions or the most popular, trendy things on the internet right now? And then you try to adapt your posting based on that so you can ride the wave.
Mm-hmm.
And yoga is not meant to be that. I remember early on, maybe 5 years into creating DoYogaWithMe, and we were carefully deciding what kind of videos to put up. And one of the things we quickly realized is that 30-minute classes, in that range anyways, 30-minute classes were far more popular than 60-minute classes.
Mm-hmm.
And when I taught yoga in person, you can't, like, no studio does less than a 60-minute class. And in fact,
it changed some at the end there before everything went collapsed. But yes, generally 60 minutes or 45. I would see sometime lunchtime 45, but usually never less than that. Yeah.
Right. And my experience, I wanted to do at least 90 minutes of yoga. My sessions did not feel complete unless I did 90 minutes, just because like you go through this process from beginning to end where you're connecting with your body, you're connecting your breath, you're becoming more mindful, and then your body is just gradually opening up. And then of course, you want to wind down and you want that meditation or relaxation at the end. But then it was like this moment where our value system was being challenged. So many people were benefiting from a 30-minute class. And then we started to realize, like if you're at home, you're by yourself. The fridge is like in the other room. Your like 6-month-old is potentially going to cry during your class. Like it's really hard to separate yourself from everyday experience when you're at home. So a lot of people would just choose those shorter classes, and so we had to adapt.
I so appreciate that. I remember the moment where I let go of because when I first went to yoga classes in the early 90s, they were all an hour and 45 minutes. And that would include a very strict, 15-minute shavasana, in which everybody was feeling squirmish after 5 minutes, but the teachers made you stay for another 10 minutes, it was that was the vibe. And then it did switch to 90 minutes at a certain point because it seemed like it was just easier to put on the schedule, the way that the schedule to get more classes in or whatever just made more sense to make it a 90 minutes. And it was that way for a long time. And at some point when the kind of bigger, more venture capitalist backed yoga centers showed up and they were offering 60-minute classes and they were way more popular. A lot of the centers did that. I remember when I was doing my online classes first, they were all 90 minutes and they were only live. You had to be there live. There was no replay. We wanted people to have to show up, But at some point, as you observed, people, the way people interacted with things online, you could observe was different. And I was resistant. But then I remember what I said to myself was, well, sometimes when I practice alone at home, I just do 30 minutes. Or I just do even 5 minutes. Yeah. So why can't I have a practice for someone else that would be that short? Well, why? Yeah. What's this idea I have that it has to be 90 minutes?
And that's where we came to as well. It's we thought if we were able to give someone what they needed in that moment, then that's it. That's the reason to do it.
All right. So it starts with you just posting videos of you doing some stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
When does it do you remember a time when it began to grow or get bigger or become something more? What's the signpost that it starts to become more than you just shooting videos of yourself and putting them up the website?
Yeah. So I was teaching in Victoria and I put out an email to all of the teachers there. Do you want to be involved in this project? And one teacher responded, Fiji McAlpine. She's now maybe not by far, but she is the most popular teacher on the website. She's become the face of the company. And we quickly started filming together and she just loved it. She was so passionate about it. She saw the potential. And then on the business side, all of our content was free, but we accepted donations. And we also allowed our classes and guided meditations to be downloaded for a fee. So we were making some money. And then we launched our first in-person retreat in Mexico, and that did well. It filled up. And then our traffic, I can't remember what year it was, but our traffic, we didn't do any paid ads. It was all organic. We eventually reached something like 200,000 visitors a month. And that was
was a boom, wasn't there? There was a boom of before they throttled it or whatever.
Exactly, before they throttled it. And then we're like, okay, so we're not making enough money to pay ourselves.
Yeah.
Donations are fine, and people kept asking, can I set up regular monthly payments? Can I give more? Can I do this? Can I do that? And so we were like, okay, so we have a need here. People love what we're doing. They feel loyal. They feel like our mission is worthy. Let's give them what they want. And we set up a subscription. Little did I know that
the whole world was going to do that, right?
Exactly. And I was going to
become a subscription, yes.
I was going to say, with two people running the company, little do you know how many bugs there can be in a subscription
but that's the
system
thing. People don't always understand that. That's so interesting that you said that, because we've made some choices specifically like around whatever, whether you have a membership site or there's other ways to do it, so that you don't run into all those kinds of like admin. Like you said, it can take over your whole life just trying to run a website, and that's not what you want to do if you want to like be outside doing yoga.
Yeah, exactly. And between the subscription system and at that time we were using Vimeo to stream our videos, we were getting a lot of streaming problems too.
Yeah.
So like Sean and I, my brother and I we weren't sleeping well. We were like, it was really stressful back then.
Yeah.
And
this is after you first launched the subscription service?
Yeah. Yeah. And we, thankfully, enough people signed up that our revenue jumped. And so we were like, okay, now we see the potential to pay ourselves a living wage and grow this. Because we didn't know at that point there was a steady climb, and we didn't know when that climb would end based on the current 200,000 people who were visiting our website.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know,
and how many of those people would actually pay for something? You know,
exactly.
Like,
yeah. Right. And how, I guess, yeah, the question is always, for a business, how do we provide the right kind of content so that someone wants to come back and they're feeling better when they leave? That was the question that we were. They
like it enough that they're like, with. I'm going to pay for this, whatever, every month, and I can keep using it.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And what's interesting is, you know, I just recently heard this other podcast with the woman, Ava Taylor, I believe. She had Yama Talent. Maybe you remember that, which was like a talent representation for yoga teachers at like a time when that was more a thing. But the whole business that she was doing was all centered on doing, you know, travel workshops and retreats and stuff. And, you know, it kind of all disappeared. And she was talking about, you know, sustainability and things. And I have found, and again, kudos to Josh, my business partner, because he was the one who very early on was like, no, you can't treat yoga classes online the same as your in-person. He's like, no drop-in rates for online. It's got to be a subscription. Mm-hmm. He was like, look at Netflix, look at this. He's like, it's got to be a subscription. He's like, and you try to have it as low as much as you can, a monthly thing. Yeah. And offer people access to as much good content as you can.
Yeah. Yeah. You want to, there's that ongoing struggle. You want to value what you're creating, but you want it to be low enough so people can afford it, or enough people can afford it that you're going to have a thriving business.
I know. And that balance is really something like to explore for folks in a way that, like I've said this recently on this show, and I'll say it again because it still rings in my head, where someone who knows a lot about the industry said to me, you know, a yoga teacher can't make 6 figures a year, but a transformational coach can. And what he meant by that is that a lot of times people pay for like a transformational coach with an idea about what they're paying for that you can charge a lot more for, but not as many people could ever afford to do it. And often yoga teachers are trying to do their business in according to their values, like you're saying, where it's like, I don't have high aspirations to like grow. I just want to make enough to do okay and be able to feel good about what I do, you know? And there's a different business plan if you're looking to just find something that's not like big bursts of massive, like, ooh, we have a big fire sale and we get this huge burst of sales, but then it drops way down, you know, as opposed to like something that kind of is steady over years. It seems to me that DoYogaWithMe has managed to do what we've tried to do, which is sort of like cultivate like not like have aspirations for the massive growth, but just can we develop like enough of a core group of people who are into what we're doing in this place online, this DoYogaWithMe site, to kind of like sustain it and the people who are working with it, you know?
Yeah, it's all about the relationship. Our primary goal is to develop the kind of relationship with our community that they feel they can reach out and get support anytime. You know, it's not just about doing the classes or finding classes that work for you that you can do regularly and it helps you thrive in your life. But, you know, we have a forum and our teachers are on the forum. We make ourselves accessible by direct email. Like most of the teachers are accessible by email. So it's, you know, it really is genuinely community focused for us.
Now, you said you have a forum, and I'm assuming that forum is not on Facebook.
No, it isn't.
I say that because we recently explored putting together some kind of something like it, but not on Facebook, that we have control over more, you know?
Yeah.
And I guess my question around that is, as I was saying, and we were talking about before, there was a moment where we all did go onto social media. I mean, I certainly was posting everything I was doing on, I think it was Facebook and Twitter, and then the very end, Instagram, but I was a very late comer to Instagram. But at some point, at this point, it's a lot of years ago, at the behest of my business partner again, and also just because I hated it, just kind of got off and stopped doing it. Like, and we kind of beta tested it and proved to ourselves that it really wasn't driving more. It wasn't doing what everybody envisioned doing all that posting was doing. Oh,
so do you use social media at all now?
No, none. I just do the podcast and my email list.
And how your email, so it's through email that you reach people, but how do you get new listeners to your podcast?
People tell people. That's how it always has happened. Like, advertising on social media never increased our listenership. And we tested it.
Have you been on other podcasts?
I have. That's one of the best ways too, by far.
Right. Okay.
But, you know, I'm kind of in this space for a long time now. But I guess, so you still use it? Do you still do ads and stuff for Do Yoga With Me on there? And no judgment. You make it work, you can make it work. Because if, you know, like, I think my impression is that if you've got like, whatever, $100,000 to spend on ads so you can make $120,000 off of it or something, people do it. But if it's just like an independent yoga teacher throwing money at Facebook ads to promote their retreat, I don't know if that really is doing anything for them.
Oh yeah. So we never run paid ads. I will not give a penny to Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Google. We've considered it. You know, it's kind of the what do you call it? It's like necessary evil is the way some people look at it. But we just want to grow organically, and we want.
If you are hearing this message, then you're listening to the free version of Jay Brown Yoga Talks. To hear the rest of our conversation, please subscribe to Podcast Premium at jbrownyoga.com/premium.